He's the man, he's the myth, he's the legend, he's the scientist with all the answers and all the questions. It's time for another episode of Alex's Science Corner.
Oh, thank you. A little slow from the clappers in the back there. But the gorilla up front was happy to see me.
Alex, what's going on in the wide, wide world of science?
All right, first up, the first story is about a symbiotic relationship between salamanders and algae. This is something that researchers have recently discovered, in which a particular species of spotted salamander called the Ambiostoma masculatum. Okay, I butchered that horribly.
Just a salamander.
So it's a Latin word. What they found is that these salamanders grow up with this algae in their cells, and it starts with the salamander within the embryo. When the embryo of the salamander is growing, there's algae in the egg sac of the salamander. And researchers originally thought that the algae was just in the egg sac and helped provide a little bit of oxygen to the egg sac. But after researching the adult salamanders some more, they found that I don't want to say infested, but there's algae. This algae is within the cells, or many of the cells of the salamander. And many times people refer to that as a parasitic relationship, but in this case it's a symbiotic relationship, because the algae seems to be providing the salamander with a little extra energy coming through the sunlight, like a plant would provide. So the salamander's cells are getting this energy from the algae, and the algae seems to be getting some protection from the salamander being in the salamander cells. They're not exactly sure the exact benefits for the algae right now, because the algae is getting less sunlight. It's not growing as quick, but the salamander is definitely getting a benefit from having the algae in the salamander cells. Questions? Everybody's asleep. Okay.
I have nothing, no comments for that.
All right, so this is the first time that they've noticed this kind of symbiotic relationship with plant cells within an animal cells, providing nutrients to the animal from the algae cells.
Problem is they don't have an opening to jump all over you. That's
yeah, exactly. And
who's T-Mobile over there is going off?
yeah.
We're on the air, baby. Story number two.
Story number two.
It's important. He's got to get up.
I wanted to say something about being green, but I just couldn't make it. With the
couldn't
algae.
make it work.
No,
Okay.
couldn't.
All right, so the next
And I
story.
also wanted to bring in Star Wars too, because in the first episode there was a symbiotic relationship between, the people that were on the planet and
All right, well,
Jar
this,
Jar Binks people.
I think you're going to have to edit this for YouTube.
Go ahead.
yeah, because the explaining why I didn't have a joke for you is not as funny as
As actually saying the joke.
All right, so the next story was something that Brian pointed me towards. Stephen Hawking moved up humanity's deadline for escaping Earth. Stephen Hawking.
You did, really?
Well, Stephen Hawking said in a recent quote that he thinks that humans have to get off of the planet within the next 100 years. Now,
We're all safe in this room.
yeah, we're not going to make that deadline.
No.
Well,
we're
I'm
not.
planning to be around at least another 50 more.
We'll be long dead, so
Now, there's...
Now, what's his theory about that?
Well, here's the thing. Let me set the context of the quote. He was working on a documentary for the BBC called Tomorrow's World, where they're talking about how to leave Earth. So there's a specific reason for that kind of a quote. When you've got the talking head on one of these programs saying, this is really important that we do this, and nobody else ever talks about it outside of the documentary. This is the context of that quote. one of the other descriptions, so he's talking about how we need to leave Earth. There's all this other stuff. And again, it's within the context of this particular documentary that he's doing. He's also...
Well, does that mean like the Earth's resources will be exhausted?
Yeah,
And
and climate
because-
change
and
asteroids
for the population that's on the planet?
And
I mean, if we turn around our climate change and our the way we're treating the Earth,
and we
will
don't
that
get hit by asteroids, then we'll probably survive that 100 years.
yeah, but what if the population's so great that it exceeds the resources that are present?
Well, then you got what you have normally with natural selection is that population will stop growing.
Or famine, disease.
But here's the fun part about that is they thought that was going to happen in the 70s.
Well, we did have a gas shortage in the 70s.
Yes.
I can
and
remember
since
there
then
was
the
car lines
population
and stuff.
there's a population that grew since then, and we've still got more stuff coming in. So it's one of those things that it's not a simple quote. It's not a simple statement.
Is he working on getting us off the planet?
No, he has nothing to do with that. He's a particle physicist. He's a physicist. He's not a engineer. He's not a climatologist. He's not an.
So we have to be out of here by
Well,
2117.
Says the
I
guy
got
who's
some
sitting.
stuff you can smoke and it gets you off the planet.
At least for a couple of hours. You're going to have to edit that out of the YouTube video.
I'm just sitting here going, I don't know if this episode is even going to go up.
Yeah, probably not.
Oh, you've got to. If it's got Stephen Hawking in it, yes, you've
So-
got to.
One of the things about it was like when Albert Einstein, because he was listed as one of the smartest people at the time, which nobody's going to argue with that point. They think he knows everything, so any kind of comment he makes, even if he's not actually familiar with the exact topics, he's considered an expert. And this applies to a lot of things. For example, Linus Pauling, 2 Nobel Prizes, chemistry and physics, there's stuff named after him. He started talking about if you're sick, mega dose on vitamin C, which is a very bad thing to do. You should not take large amounts of vitamin C if you're sick because it can damage your liver and it does not make you better. It does not heal you up.
Everything in moderation, folks.
Right. But, I mean, you need to take vitamin C. You just don't megadose. But because it was Linus Pauling, because he was a physicist, but not a physician, he was a physicist, people started to say, oh, that's what we got to do now. So it's one of those challenging things about listening to somebody like this say something. They're smart. They've got an idea of what they're talking about, but they may not know the specifics. For example, he's talking about artificial intelligence, but he hasn't written any
Stephen?
software. Yeah.
Okay.
Stephen Hawking has talked a lot about artificial intelligence. But when you listen to his description, the problems with artificial intelligence, he's describing stuff you see in B movies about artificial intelligence. So
Machines are going to take over.
yeah, and
Yeah, but if you look at the original Star Trek shows, and they had those flip phones that they're communicators. I mean, we've got those today. You still use an old-fashioned, not smartphone, Brian. So
and women walking around with their
and so-
single-piece miniskirts.
yeah, and the bee stuff.
I like that one.
The bee stuff becomes reality. What's feeding? Is science feeding entertainment, or is entertainment feeding reality? It's.
Yeah, there's a challenge of that, of course, because there's a story to be told. But when you look at Star Trek, also, bets are there's no alien that we may ever find that's going to look like any of the aliens you'll see on Star Trek, because they have to tell a story.
I'm talking
But
about
yeah,
technology.
again, right,
You're
but
talking
you're
about
also-
artificial intelligence, and you're talking about Stephen Hawking, and then some of the things he's saying are like B-movie stuff.
But the
and-
point Alex was saying is just because Stephen Hawking is a brilliant guy doesn't
mean
mean
he
he
knows
knows
what he's-
everything.
Yes, but unfortunately, people, because he's considered smart, people will listen to him on stuff that he doesn't know.
That he's
anything
not an
about.
expert on.
No, he's not an expert, but that doesn't make it. That doesn't mean that what he's saying won't eventually become a reality.
Well, it doesn't mean
But
it
it
will
also
either.
doesn't mean you're right. It's again, there's a lot of complexity to things, and one of the challenges of listening to smart people is that unfortunately they think they're smart on things that they're not smart about.
So they're dumb.
No. It's just that there's a term for it. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. People think they know more about something than they know about it.
Are we talking
And
That means
right.
me.
And so
like what? I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, you're lost.
Never mind, Bobby. All right.
yeah, so people think they know more about something than they know about it. And so you start asking somebody who's smart, they're just going to start talking, and they may not have the background to give you good information, but they're not going to stop talking about it. And that applies, everybody suffers from the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's just trying to recognize within yourself that, I think I've gone past where I've actually know anything about this subject. So.
Okay. All right. At that point, shall we throw it out for questions to the general audience?
Are we the general audience? No, we've asked. We had enough of questions.
We got people out there.
I think we've confused people enough that I'm going to be surprised if I get questions. It's going to take.
I have a feeling you're going to get questions. So if you'd like to talk to Alex about these two stories or anything else science related, we can have the Dunning-Kruger effect going on right now. Number here is 203.
Call me up and find out what the Dunning-Kruger sounds like.
There you go. 203
837
99
2-4.